Hey, what's going on, everybody? TujoPanda back in action. Talk about something else today, but something else. I just wanted to catch up with y'all, because obviously I took a little bit of a hiatus there. I just need a little bit of me time to sort of recuperate, get a sense of what's going in life, and where I was going to go from there. So, how y'all doing, everybody? Me? I'm doing alright. Thank you for asking. So, yeah, as far as the subject matter that I wanted to actually discuss, I just wanted to update you all on various topics of interest I had on my radar. The Sky Cabot lady. A lot of people have been talking about her, alleging that she's a pedophile and that she groomed her last boyfriend, which is a crazy story. Obviously, Sky Cabot denies everything, but at the same time, there's a sufficient amount of evidence that something was going on. In fact, her last partner, Kit Kat, inexplicably, they're both Cabots, by the way, so Kit Kat is just the name that, he adopted for himself as his persona's name. So Kit Kat, they allege that they were absolutely groomed, and it had gone on for quite a few years, and there was a sizable age difference between the two. I'm still wrapping my head around all that material, so don't expect a video right tomorrow about it, but I figured I'd let you all know. Also, it would be you'd all be curious to know, but Hypnotist Sappho, during that whole debacle, when I was making those videos, when she was making her rounds on Twitter, and when she was pissing everybody off, she actually reached out to me on 3 separate occasions. 2 of those accounts that she reached out to me on are deleted by now, as in, for whatever reason, on Telegram, you see them as reading as last seen a long time ago. That means one of 2 things. 1, account deleted, or 2, banned, as in you're blocked. You can't see or interact with them anymore. And the worst thing about it is, I had no reason to respond. I was actually contemplating having a little bit of a dialogue, a little bit of a conversation with her, just to get a sense of, where she was actually going with all of this, but I just couldn't, There was, I looked at it this way. 1, nothing good was going to come from that. I wasn't just going to magically convince her of the error of her ways. I wasn't going to be able to, get her to confess that everything that she'd been doing up to that point was in poor taste, absolutely abhorrent, and that she was basically manipulating a litany of minors on social media. A lot of minors still have the Zeta symbol to this day, which is absolutely fucking disgusting and concerning because they're, making the claim that they're zoophiles, but honestly, I think they're confused. And, yeah, but consider this a declassified sort of thing, all the communications when she was reaching out to me, because she was absolutely convinced that I was in the wrong for making those videos, that I had gotten everything that I had reported to you all absolutely wrong, and she was going to set the record straight, ask me what the fuck my problem was, and why I was doing the things that I do, in spite of the fact that she was quite obviously having some fun times with minors out there playing with their egg salad. It's not beyond the suspension of disbelief to say that she definitely knew what she was doing, and she had definitely caused a lot of strife. A good many people at the mere mention of her name will absolutely get violent real fucking fast. So the scars haven't exactly healed over as of yet. And I say that because, the memory still sticks in my mind. It sticks in the mind of a lot of other people, and people to this day, whenever the Wicked Beast model is brought out, they will say that the model was effectively ruined single-handedly by Hypnotist Sappho having adopted it as her, avatar here on VRChat. So yeah, I figure I might as well talk about that. What's crazy is Furry Valley. Lagovert already made a video about that, but in the days leading up to the video's release, I remember it was a month before I saw the video. I was hanging out with a couple of friends, and one of them just sort of casually blurted out, well, it's a lot better than the cult-like behavior that I've seen from Furry Valley. And that was the first time I had ever heard of Furry Valley up to that point. And from what I understand, Furry Valley is basically a furry community that's sort of dedicated to inclusion, but they do it in such a manner where when there are events taking place, whether it's playing games, entering raffles, doing this, that, or the other, it's not so much of a choice that you voluntarily participate or decide not to participate. You're kind of pushed into that. Like, they sort of like harp in on the connection of all of your social media accounts to the server so they can monitor your activities and keep track of whatever's going on. At the same time, it's strongly suggested that, like, they want you to just participate, which is obvious, but at the same time, they do it in such a way where it's, kind of like, yeah, hey, you're going to join that event, right? Right? And they won't stop until you do. Which, for young people, they feel pressured into doing something through peer pressure. So, it's questionable, alright? On top of which, like, their leader, Simba, who is, by all definitions, like, the biggest, Lion King fan out there. I had a personal friend who told me that his personal interactions, he fucked with them, basically. He likes to engage in fin-doming people. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically where, for whatever reason, for sexual gratification, it's a kink, no judgments, but people like to enter contracts with, like, the fin dom, or, like, financial domination. And the fin dom basically has what's called a pay pig, and the pay pig is beholden to the fin dom to pay large sums of money to them. And Simba, I think it's more about the greed than it is about, like, the kink, like, aspect of things. But they were always looking for new pay pigs, and my friend had basically fucked with him. This is my friend's story, so take it with a grain of salt. But had basically fucked with him and was, like, sort of egging him on, acting like he was going to be a pay pig for him before he just, had the big reveal, and Simba got mad and left. About what you expect, but Simba themselves, there's, like, hints of controversy. I couldn't find a whole lot of material to really substantiate anything that happened, and while I was doing research, Lagovert's video inexplicably came out shortly thereafter, so I'm not sure if there's much I can really add to the conversation, but it was a topic of interest that I wanted to bring to the table, discuss, make some commentary, like we usually do, and just kind of shake our heads at the nonsensical nature of it all. There was a name from my distant past, and you might remember this during the Cure of the Wolf time period. It was like a couple years ago, but there were a bunch of fucking people that burst out of the woodwork when the whole story broke light, when everything was on the table for people to sort of, like, look at and really assess for themselves whether Kira the Wolf was innocent or guilty. One name sticks out because for years they were incessantly making comments on those old videos. They never stopped. I never responded to them. I never had a reason to, because when you actually look at some of the comments, I had to dig deep, alright? I had to dig deep for these screen caps because I wasn't sure if I even had them anymore. Turns out I do. And the comments, like the nature of the comments, was basically substantiating the fact that Kira the Wolf was absolutely innocent and using Bible verses that we as men have no right to judge our fellow man because we are not the ultimate authority on such matters as God is. And therefore, we need to remain respectful and, understand that it was really hard to follow. All right. Like, the whole thing was absolutely surreal. When I first saw those comments and I read them, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and file this in the nut job category. Not too much to sort of say about that. I didn't take it seriously at the time. But later on, I found out the identity of this individual. So I'm not sure if you remember, but there was a good many people that sort of came out of the woodwork. And two of the names that sort of stick in my mind as hardcore Kira the Wolf fanboys, like defenders, was Sniff Heinkel and Jonathan Hughes. Sniff Heinkel apparently has a bit of a history of getting himself involved and not letting shit go. That's just what other people observe from him. But we're not here to talk about Sniff Heinkel. We're here to talk about Jonathan Hughes. So who is Jonathan Hughes? A very unassuming name. You wouldn't really expect too much drama from a name like that, right? Well, Jonathan Hughes apparently is a psychopath. They're absolutely insane in the membrane. That's the best way I could describe it, because Lagovert apparently made a video about that, and when I read the title of the video, I couldn't help but just kind of pause for a second because I remembered that name. and I'm dredging up all this old material from back in the day because I was going to eventually like make a video in acknowledgement of Jonathan Hughes' existence. Because here's the thing: when I was like sort of like operating the channel in those days and uploading these videos about Kira the Wolf, eventually, as it became more and more clear that Kira the Wolf was absolutely guilty instead of just ambiguously guilty, Jonathan Hughes eventually admitted that yes, Kira the Wolf might be guilty. But that's okay, because in the Bible, it sanctions the union of man and beast together in holy matrimony. And I'm just like, at that point, I was just like, what the fuck? No! 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 Any video that I make would probably cover more of, like, the in-depths about, like, my personal experiences with them and everything that I find out outside of that. Because apparently there's a lot, alright? And his actual name is Arctica White Fox, I believe, and he goes by a number of different aliases, but Jonathan Hughes and Arctica White Fox are the two that sort of stuck out in my mind. So that's certainly a rabbit hole of insanity I can cover. But no, other than those topics of interest, as far as something a little bit more recent, I forget the Haruda, I think it's Haruda hyena. Apparently, they, like, bilked somebody for $12,000 for a fursuit that they never delivered. As in, it was a pre-made fursuit already in existence. It wasn't something that you had to make from the ground up. It was something that, you know, they already had, and they advertised it through pictures, and somebody was interested in buying it. And had a nice little mushroom cap. It was a gator fox, I want to say. I don't remember because, like, it's got a very chunky look. I could understand it being a gator, but no, like, they never sent the fursuit out. They received money. And don't think it's like $12,000 at once. No, this is over a span of years. So don't think it was just like, you know, $12,000 all in one go. No, they just kept cooking up new excuses over and over again about why they couldn't send this suit, that they needed to handle their living expenses, they needed to handle this. Oh no, the house is burning down. Oh, my mother fell over and she can't get up. And it was just like all these stories. It's for stories like this that is the primary reason why I generally do not commission people. In fact, if I was ever to make a fursuit like this, I'd probably just do it my own damn self, do the research, try to buckle down, learn how to use a sewing machine worth a damn. Like, I think the most important thing would be the eyes and the head, but I would do it my own damn self because, like, I've heard nothing but bad experiences between people that commission fursuits. Not to mention the price. I don't know about you all, but I don't exactly have $3,000 to $5,000 just sitting around, okay? If I did, that would all go to VR peripherals and, like, gaming computer parts, okay? I probably wouldn't invest that in a fursuit because as cool as fursuits are, it's a little bit of a luxury item that isn't, like, you know, mandatory for my quality of life and well-being. I get that shit from VR. I get that shit from my household. I don't really need to go and gallivant at furry cons, like, in fursuit. Although it's pretty cool to, like, you know, be around other fursuiters and sort of be the focus of attraction for the event. That shit's cool. What's not cool is the high price and high cost of maintenance and time, because those things are nothing but ovens. Like, I've heard stories where we haven't been able to develop materials sufficient at soaking up the sweat, and, like, you know, it just, the padding alone will insulate you, as well as the fur will also generate heat. And you're wearing that, like, all day. And the most important thing is water, like, intake, so you don't dehydrate yourself, and that you remain well ventilated, because a lot of people don't well ventilate their fursuits. But anyway, getting off topic here. $12,000 fucking dollars? Some people have said, yo, at that point, I'd just take a hit out on whoever's been bilking me all this money. It's just like $12,000. There's no fursuit out there unless it's inlaid with gold thread and maybe some jewelry to substantiate the cost of $12,000. Or maybe it was like slightly robotic, like it had robotic eyes and like, a special mesh interior that cooled you down and shit like that. Then I could, understand $12,000. But like on its own, just the fursuit itself, a nice design admittedly, but nothing that I'd pay that much money for. That was some drama that I couldn't help but notice, crossed my timeline on Twitter. I just kind of raised my eyebrow. So like, other than that, the thing that I've been working on for close to a year now, with various other people, and you've seen hints of it in the form of shorts and skits and acts, but the thing that I've been working on is a long-standing film series that delves into Lovecraftian horror. It deals a lot with a death cult that's trying to, return the world to an age of witchcraft and mysticism, in an effort to bring about their dormant god that is currently asleep, and they're hoping to wake her up so that she can bring back a veritable paradise to turn the world into all of this. But any god that revels in death and destruction and the suffering of man, well, you're not going to get this. In your head, briefly, as an illusion, maybe, but you're certainly not going to get this. Or maybe you are. Maybe, like, after everyone is dead, she will return the world to a veritable paradise for her and her alone to enjoy to the end of her days. Which, being a god, do gods usually die? They get killed. They don't just die of natural causes, I don't think. So, I say that because I want to make a bit of an announcement right here, right now. I want to dedicate a new channel specifically to the efforts of my cast, because my cast is comprised of my friends, personal friends I've met in VR chat, sometimes a little bit outside of VR chat, but most of these people have dedicated their time, effort, and determination and acting ability to try to make this film project, float. And, I had a lot of hardships in the early days, like various people that had promised me the world and then some and said that they loved to act, that they would love to be a part of a film project. They dropped out just as soon as I started filming. Caught up in the moment, I guess. I don't take it personally, because, that is a big commitment. Like a fucking year. I didn't think it would be that long, but there are so many episodes that are already ready and good to go. More or less. Maybe some special effects and special editing needs to be added in, but for the most part, a lot of the material is already filmed and good to go. The only thing that I hesitate on now is finishing a damn good prologue that I had visualized in my head for how this was going to begin. And then I can start uploading episodes to YouTube, so expect that by August, I would imagine, if I can get things going. But other than that, no, it's to the efforts of the cast that I've managed to cultivate up to this point that I wanted to dedicate a new YouTube channel, with them in mind. Because this whole film project, alright, I'm still learning as a director. That's my passion, right? I want to be a film director. I want to make movies. I want to make film. I want to make this and that and the other. But at the same time, I'm still learning, alright? I can always improve. I have a lot of room for improvement, but learning through experience has certainly taught me a lot about cinematography, how to manage people, how to best dictate the scene and allow things to flow, like the series of events that lead up to things, and make it more cinematic and stand out. Because for some of you that have been with me for a long damn time, you might remember back in the day that my attempts at film project making were terrible. Okay, it was all improv. There was no script. There were outlines. The only things that were scripted back in the day were things that, absolutely needed a script, like speeches and certain dialogue points. Everything followed a rough outline, and it was the best way I can describe it to you all is 45 minutes of people talking, 5 minutes of something action-packed happening, 10 minutes after that to talk about what just happened, boom, end of episode. And it was terrible, okay? I fully admit that, but you gotta understand. Up to that point, this was mere passion, okay? I made the jump to try to, make a passion project happen. And it failed, because there was no script. A lot of good ideas. There wasn't a consistent cast. I need people to be able to, join up with me consistently, or at least semi-consistently, in order to get some continuity out of that. Because if it's just, one and done, where does that go? That's nothing, as far as a film series goes. So this film series, after it's submitted, uploaded, everything good to go, I want to move on to movies. I want to improve my craft as far as like camera work here in VR chat, and be able to act as like an actual character in it. And I got like other ideas for things along the way. It's not just movies, but I tell you all because I'm unveiling the new channel today. Don't expect any content just yet. I want to finalize some things before I upload some shorts and skits that we did for fun, but it's going to be called Virtual Miscast. And if you're wondering, when I first got started, I was going to call the whole film production VirtuaCast. I had Virtua Fighter in mind, and I just figured cast, but like a friend of mine said, well, how about we call it Miscast? Because sometimes, occasionally, because, the way I run things is a little bit communistic, if, so-and-so are going to be the lead actors for this scene, I want people that weren't the lead actors to be the lead actors for the next scene. And so it goes. He just pitched the idea of Miscast, so I basically combined the two. Virtual Miscast. And this is all dedicated to the Fraternal Order of Virtual Misfits, because that's pretty much what we are. It's like a dysfunctional family. That's what I consider the cast. Everybody knows me. We're all been friends for like several years now, in some cases, some only several months, but, they're good people. They get a little rowdy sometimes, but I try to rein them in, and, when we actually arrive at set and everyone's good to go, we have the capability and propensity to do some great scenes. But anyway, you probably don't want to hear me talk about that all night. I just mentioned it because, I want to make an official announcement for it, as well as some other things I've been working on along the way. And obviously you can expect, gaming things. I've been working on some gaming stuff, like playing Stalker, Misery Mod, obviously a desktop game that's based on the Stalker series, but also VR games like Prison Escape. I already posted one video about that, and it would follow roughly the same format, but different experiences, different jokes, different things happening on screen. But yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to be able to catch up with you all and get a sense of where we're going. So yeah, more of the same. Obviously, everybody wants their dirty laundry. There was a Don Henley song, back in the 80s, 90s, that just called Dirty Laundry. If you've never heard it before, I don't expect you to have. Why don't you look it up sometime? Just listen, study the lyrics. That would be the theme song of my particular YouTube channel. I wasn't expecting to become a commentator, but here we are. 3 years in and still going. And I don't intend on quitting anytime soon. So hey, hopefully you can stick by me for the rest of the show. Anyway, just want to give you all a quick update. I obviously, as I mentioned in my last video, I still work a 9-to-5 job, so that eats up a good chunk of my day, whether through the commute or the actual hours worked. Plus, the responsibilities that I have to other people, obligations that I share, either to family, friends, or just keeping my own self and well-being going. Handling all my living expenses and things like that. But you all sticking by my side, that's pretty inspirational, It gives me something to come back to, the possibility of growing the channel and improving my craft. Because I can always stand to improve. Don't worry. I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for that. But whenever I deliver e-news to you all, I want to do it a little bit more of a positive light than some other YouTubers out there do. Because I feel like, this is just my personal opinion, some YouTubers that are in the commentary community, it's like, hey, this person did X, Y, Z bad. You should hate them for it. I see it more as, hey, this person over here did X, Y, and Z, bad. Alright? Depending on the severity of bad, because, bad can be subjective, alright? The only time I would consider it to be absolutely, truly abhorrent, PSA, all points bulletin, hey, watch out for this individual, do not associate with them, is if either they're a pedophile or a zoophile. Only time. Everything else, it really comes down to patterns of bad behavior, and the person themselves, the individual, may not actually be bad, fundamentally speaking. They might just be paranoid, they might have some mental issues up there that impact their ability to interact with others to a meaningful degree, and maybe they're wounded. People that are fundamentally wounded, either they had a bad childhood or something traumatic happened to them. Either they fall into a couple different categories. Again, I'm not a psychologist when I say all this, so I just want to say this as just how I personally feel about it, what I've witnessed over the span of my life. When they're wounded, they fall into certain patterns. Either they wallow in their own self-pity, which you can't help them. They have to either seek therapy or the advice of a psychologist, or through time and time alone, their own ability to move past and move on from that point, like, the point of trauma. Depends on what actually happened to them. Other people, they become malicious. They're victims, you understand? They've been through traumatic events that have turned them into a bit of a monster. It's affected their mental state, and they have a reason to lash out at other people. The reason being is that, somebody had done harm to them, they will do harm to others to, gain a sense of perhaps control over people. It depends on, the motives of the person. You're only truly bad, I would say, and just my personal opinion, as I said, when you are knowingly hurting somebody else, usually emotionally. If you're obviously doing it physically, that's a little bit different because you going to jail. You going to jail. But so many times people do things that are not illegal, but they're immoral or sick as fuck. But not illegal. And it's in those situations that you have to wonder about the motives of that person. What were they trying to do? Because, it comes down to so many different, circumstances that you find yourself in. But, what I find is that they're going out of their way on faulty hardware or faulty software, that they see situations entirely different than you are. The only time that somebody is truly malicious is that they're knowingly hurting other people, emotionally. They're manipulating them. They lie to people. They make grandiose, efforts to try to attract attention to themselves at the detriment of others. It comes into many flavors, but, it's hard to assess, whether or not people are truly bad. I have sort of an optimistic outlook on life. I see human beings as fundamentally good. It's just that the chaos and destruction in the world turn some people into monsters. But as me and Wolfie so often like to said, people can change. It's just that the people that try to use that as a justification for an in-the-moment apology, it seems like something that they try to just brush off their back, that the apology doesn't really mean a whole lot because it's not coming from the heart. It's coming from, a matter of convenience to try to, brush aside any controversy that might cling to them. So, yeah. So, other topics of interest that I could discuss. What would you all like to hear me talk about? Because there's got to be something that that I don't know, right? I heard a lot of different little stories that I think would, at the very least, be worth a little bit of a footnote. Hell, one on top of my head. Alright, so remember how I covered the Polybun shooting? Truly an abhorrent and despicable act. I hope he faces the fullest extent of the law. But, I made the observation that furries generally don't engage in violent crime. Usually. There are exceptions, okay? Usually it breaks down to assault, or white-collar crime, or petty theft, or misdemeanors, like doing stupid shit that happens to be illegal. But, for the most part, I don't hear a whole lot of stories where furries go out of their way to either murder or hurt other people. There was a murder out in Las Vegas. One of the two murderers happened to be furry. I think they were both furry, actually. But certainly a very lurid story. I was morbidly fascinated when I read into that. Something worth talking about. I might cover it in greater detail when I do some sufficient research. I actually know who the lead parties are. Because I read the story, but I don't remember everything off the top of my head. I'd have to do some more research, get the facts straight, and how it pertains to the greater furry fandom, if at all. I'm starting to think that it was just the murderer happened to be a furry. One of the two. possibly both. Cynthia the Dragoness, remember her? Remember that crazy lady that liked to try to curry favor with popufurs, only to try to break their hearts later after extracting money from them, or trying to manipulate and blackmail them into giving her money, in her money. Well, you wouldn't be surprised, but actually, maybe you would be surprised. You know how Kiwi Farms is basically the lion's den? Like, none of you all should probably be going to Kiwi Farms, okay? Unless you're you got literally fuck all to do, and you just want to get your jollies off laughing at the, stupid bullshit conducted by other people. That's the only reason you go. I only go when I need to, verify evidence or see what other people are saying about a particular topic of interest. And even then, I prefer not to use it. I see Kiwi Farms for what it is. A hive mind of various individuals out there that they themselves are individuals, but as a group, they all have, a set of mutual interests, all right? They like to laugh at the stupid shit that other people do on the internet, behind the veil of anonymity over the internet, all right? So, Cynthia the Dragoness, actually, after I released that last video, they actually had the audacity, the nerve, to go to Kiwi Farms to try to plead her case with the Kiwi farmers after they had already gotten her face, her identity, and her location, and all this other details, tantamount to doxing. That's the biggest thing that I kind of condemn Kiwi Farms for, but they actually went out of their way to try to talk to them, and the Kiwi farmers, let me tell you a little bit something about the Kiwi farmers I've observed. Alright? Anything that you hold dear, alright? Pronouns, social justice causes, liberal ideals, anything like that, they don't give a fuck about, alright? They will openly use derogatory terms like tranny to refer to other people, and that's what they referred to Cynthia the Dragoness as. They saw them as a troon, a tranny, and all this other stuff. I'm not using that terminology to try to offend Cynthia the Dragoness. I think their own bad actions and stupid behavior is far more than enough for me to poke fun at. But those are the terminology that they use to refer to them and anybody that happens to be transgender. So I know that the furry fandom has a lot of homosexuals. They have a lot of transgender people, or perhaps people that don't identify as any particular gender, and that's fine. But just bear in mind, Kiwi Farms doesn't give a fuck about all that. So, all right. Cynthia Dragoness actually went over there, and the Kiwi farmers obviously had a field day just raking her over the coals. And, out of morbid curiosity, I went back there, and I'm just did Cynthia Dragoness actually fucking do this? The fuck? Yes. So Cynthia Dragoness went to Kiwi Farms and tried to plead her case, and the Kiwi farmers had fun with her. And Cynthia Dragoness, by other people's accounts, is still going strong, still going at it. They just changed their identity. They're laying low. They made 2 apology videos with her actual face, just apologizing to everybody. And they're the best example, better than Maine Wolfie, about how they think that an apology is going to be sort of like a get out of jail free card. But instead of jail, where they probably should belong for abusing minors and things like that, and manipulating people and trying to blackmail people for money, instead of jail, think about it as public condemnation. Various people have shared her identity, her name, her username, her handle, anything that they could use to identify her. Nido Queer went through a lot with that bitch, and I've seen her face both times through the video and over online on Kiwi Farms. It was about what I expected, to be honest with you, when I found out all the little lure details about them. They're a sad and insane in the membrane individual that should be avoided at all costs if you value your sanity. But if you can keep your girl self grounded in reality, hey, just don't share any personal intimate details and try not to get too attached, because they might cling to you like a lamprey eel. They've certainly done that for less with other people. Anyway, they went to Kiwi Farms. They had a barrel of laughs. No, they didn't. They didn't last too long. They actually referred to me by name. They're like, TujoPanda, if you're reading this right now, I will let you know that I've changed. over the span of 5 weeks, they haven't engaged with minors, and they intend on keeping that. No, just no. They did not keep their promise. Okay, they kept going. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say that right now. They went right back to what they were doing before. A sufficient number of people have come out to confirm this, so like all of these grand assertions that they were going to be a changed individual and I'm not going to be a pedophile no more, no siree, I'm going to continue on the straight path to being a decent, well-balanced human being on, path forward. Nah. It didn't work out that way. But that's fine. Hopefully enough people out there will recognize, the signs and the red flags that multiply from the get-go and avoid them, because they don't need no more attention, okay? So, that's pretty much it for right now. One person has suggested the Furry Raiders, and if you're not familiar with who the Furry Raiders are, they are a community in the furry fandom that, well, they wear a particular style of armband. Now, armbands have historically been used by a multitude of different countries and nationalities to signify a political movement. But armbands these days are mostly associated with a particular, political movement that occurred back in the 1940s, 1930s. I think as far back as the 1920s, honestly. But, yeah, it's not good, okay? A lot of the furry fandom refers to them as Nazis. Like, they're basically furry Nazis. Me personally, and I'm not trying to just, be charitable and generous just from the get-go, but I would go so far as to say that multitude of them probably don't know shit about politics, and they're basically doing this as, a publicity stunt, a core of their brand to be like a fuck you to the furry fandom and, piss people off. Because they seem like edgelords, memesters, and anything under the sun that you would probably see from 4chan. It doesn't really speak to what they actually know about politics, what their actual core beliefs are. They just say a lot of meme-worthy, edge-worthy shit that's going to make the rest of the furry fandom cringe anytime they hear it or see it on Twitter. And Foxler Nightfire, their glorious leader, I actually knew him once upon a time. Like, I crossed paths with him at Biggest Little FurCon years ago. He seemed alright. Maybe a little alt-right. Nah. He's a very unassuming person because he's very soft-spoken, and he presents the image of being a chill dude. But here's the problem. He was also indicted for the grooming of a minor. And that right there was enough for me to just be like, no, Indianos. As far as what the Furry Raiders have been doing more lately, they've been the butt of the joke for the rest of the furry fandom for years now. The armband is a very auspicious armband because it's red, and it's got a white spot on it, and instead of the swastika, it's got a paw print on there. Because paw prints are way cooler than swastikas. Not an untrue statement, but in this context, probably not the best image to present to the furry fandom, especially with the whole anti-Nazi, anti-fascist movement and stuff like that. But they've been doing it for years, and like I mentioned before, Rocky Mountain FurCon was quote-unquote considered their stomping ground, even though even the Rocky Mountain Fur staffers couldn't stand them, supposedly. But yeah, maybe. I don't think there's a whole lot to mention, because as far as their presence in the furry fandom as a group that the rest of the furries can point and laugh at, they haven't done a lot, that would be, at least, not a lot that I can really be knowledgeable of and cite. There's a lot of claims out there, but, you can claim that people have done this, that, and the other, like, all you want. Unless there's some evidence to verify this. About the most I can remember is, like, Foxler Nightfire being indicted for grooming a minor, which, no bueno. But, he also, there was sort of like a controversy at Rocky Mountain FurCon where he had booked, like, a large number of rooms, like, at the expense of the rest of the con attendees, and basically when the con found out about it, they intervened, contacted the hotel, and both parties were basically trying to pressure him to yo, you gotta give up some of those rooms. You can't just book every fucking room in that wing just for your friends and family. Like, no. So, other than all that, I can't really think of any more topics of interest off the top of my head. I just wanted to update you all on what was on the horizon, as it were. Way out there. Big thing is, other alternative channel, Virtual Miscast. Definitely check that out sometime, and when I start uploading content to it, you'll all be in the know. I will definitely add it to the featured channels on my channel, and hopefully it be a big resounding success, because honestly, I'd like nothing more than to go on and make movies from this point onwards, while also keeping tabs on the furry fandom and the internet at large. Apart from that, there was also the fact that, did you know, you'd be surprised to know this, the Denver drama. Remember, the whole furore around Treble and how he was basically cooking the books, and a lot of people were pointing the finger at him as the problem here in the operation of the convention, and that he was basically the worst, chairman, the worst owner of, Corgi events, and that he had no business being at the head of anything. He publicly came out and he was just like, okay, I'm going to be stepping down from my position, and I'm going to be assuming the role of a consultant for the nonprofit organization intending on taking over where I left off. Here's the problem. Treble is still in control of things, just not in not so many words. He's still in control. He's still managing all of those conventions. He's still at the head of things, and that he's not just loaning out his material and his equipment, like DJ equipment, things like that. He's still at the top. He's calling all the shots, and he's still in a role of leadership. And that's been a point of contention for a lot of people. Now, this year, Denver happened, and people went, and people were having a good time. The problem with all that is the fact that, in spite of, coming out publicly and saying that he was stepping down, that he was no longer going to be in a position of leadership, people still see him at events, in a very prominent role. That all be said, Boileroo even pointed it out that he's still, nothing's changed. Maybe the names of the organizations that are intended on running said cons is going to change a little bit, but the leadership angle, the person that's actually going to be calling all the shots, Treble ain't going nowhere. And he never did. And he never had any intention to. And more recently, there have been claims that, Treble himself, he's a little bit of a shithead insofar as, being transphobic towards, members of the community, and just grossly apathetic towards the plight of anybody else. And the worst thing about all of it is that, in spite of the fact that we're already in June 2022, people still haven't gotten their fucking refund. And I was cautiously optimistic because I got a lot of messages where people were saying, yeah, I got my refund. I was supposed to be an artist and I was supposed to be an attendee, but, I decided to bounce out and I got both back. And that's great, okay? If you got your refund from, Denver because you didn't feel like going, you didn't really confide and have any confidence in the leadership of Treble and all the controversies occurring within, more power to you. The problem is there have been a litany of other people that basically never got the refund. They weren't contacted. They weren't given an opportunity to sort of plead their case and try to attain a refund. A few members of staff, Corgi Events staff, presumably something else now because there was that shift in what organization was actually going to be overseeing all the con operations. They went out of their way to try to facilitate, refunding people. But also, if you're just trying to get a refund because you're going to be a con attendee and you decide to bounce out because you didn't have any confidence in the event or the staff or anything like that, well, turns out you were shit out of luck because of the terms of service, Other people, artists, it's a little bit more serious for artists because that's sort of part of their livelihood. And they got a stake that they try to protect, and when any time that there's controversies like this bubbling up behind closed doors, they get a little bit nervous and they are going to basically just pull the plug and get out, head out Dodge. So there's actually a Telegram channel, dedicated to observing, all of the lies, all of the suspicious events going on that basically eroded, like, public confidence in treble, Corgi events, Denver at large, and various other associated conventions occurring within that area. So it certainly, like, attracted my interest, and I looked into it, and it's crazy because Treble himself, he's been kind of singled out as, like, the big bad. The person that everyone can point their finger at and say that he's the problem here. And considering the fact that he bragged about making oodles and oodles of money through the operation of all these cons, and allegedly stole, like, $15,000 from, like, Lemon Brat. Well, it was more than that, but, it doesn't really imbue much confidence in me to say that he's an upstanding individual, to say the least. But I digress. We'll get into it more when I make a separate video about that. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one. Thanks for watching the video today. I really hope you enjoyed it. Would you care to hit that like button and subscribe for more? Yeah, I really appreciate that, right? And hey, if you're in the mood for gaming, why don't you check me out on Twitch sometime? Link in the description below. Anyway, till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.